So following that, we had the semi-main event of the evening for the Provisional KOPW 2024 Championship in the Rural Revitalization in Hamatsu 2 out of 3 falls match. And we have a new Provisional KOPW champion, the Heat Storm, Yuya Uemura. He defeated the Great-O-Khan 16 minutes and 50 seconds. So the first fall, and I guess from what they were saying, I thought this was just going to be a straight up like
Who can get the
NXT,
tires in first?
right? Like an NXT, pre-network, competition, yeah, running the tires and stuff like that. But they essentially had a match, but there's cones in the ring, and the first person to get 4 tires on their cone would win the first fall.
Yeah, this was Jeremy, I hate this. like I really, really, really hate these matches. Um and I do have to wonder if there just is a disconnect between what me, Josh Smith, as a wrestling fan and a Puro head enjoys about professional wrestling, and then others. And I know pro wrestling runs the whole. There's a spectrum of what pro wrestling is as an art form and everything like that. And I'm not so naive to think it's only Antonio Inoki's vision of strong style pro wrestling. I understand that. I just never thought that we were going to see the day where we were going to have title matches involving tires and lemon rinds and table spots, all combined. And the fact that more people voted for this than, granted, I don't know, a shoot style catch wrestling no strikes contest might have been less zany, and it was a close contest in the voting, but fuck, bro, like people want to see this. And even this one like was received quite a bit more, like the reception to it is a lot better than the reception to the other rural revitalization match with Tangaloa. I'm kind of the opposite way, man. Like I was okay with such a zany stipulation involving Tangaloa because I didn't take the prospects of Tangaloa and Great-O-Khan as being a great match seriously in the first place. So I almost felt like, yeah, go ahead and do a stupid ass match like that. It's gonna hide a lot of people's weaknesses and kind of cover those up. But you got a kid like Uemura who is a stud and a superstar in the making, and you got him doing this, and this is the best we can do as a first time title run. And I know it's easy to play armchair booker, but I don't care what kind of shape the company's in or whatever. Never in a million years would you have me booking guys to be fighting over tires and to eat a full fucking lemon, and that be like the stepping stone to the first singles belt so that we can. And then, and I see people online and they're like, this is Uemura's story because he's the first of the Reiwa generation guys to get singles gold and he's proven his worth. And I'm like, no, bro, no, he didn't. Because they were fighting on fucking tires and they were eating lemon rinds. This is horrible. And it was so fucking long. And this is just not for me. And when they proposed KOPW in the middle of the pandemic, I really thought that it could hypothetically be something very different and beneficial because I always thought it would still take place within the confines of the greater booking of New Japan Pro Wrestling, that there wouldn't be embarrassing things happening with it, And it's jumped the shark at this point, and I'm not trying to be hyperbolic about that, but this is not pro wrestling. This is embarrassing, and it's not something I would want to be watching while other people walked in the room and saw me watching it.
Yeah, and I people always ask me, what's the difference between like WWE and New Japan? Like, why do you watch New Japan? Why do you have a New Japan podcast and look at WWE podcast? And then talk about, oh, the pro wrestling is more athletic, hard hitting, it's more sports based, about fighting spirit. And then, you get something like this. And I'm just like, this is like, this could be on a, opening second hour of Raw. This could be on SmackDown, this kind of zany, goofy match. And again, I must be also disconnected too, and I know that also this was a vote, and it did seem, I think the Japanese audience kind of really pushed the vote, because when I looked at the US poll, I feel like it was split, but I feel like Uemura's was winning. But then on the Japanese poll, it was definitely like a very like dominant people voting for Great-O-Khan. And
Mm.
I guess they're the core audience. I guess it works for the Japanese audience, but yeah, I'm not a huge fan of these rural revitalizations and the KOPW. And I thought KOPW would have been the way for them to kind of do more plunder. Like, all right, we have this kind of title. We can do an actual table match. We can do a ladder match. We can do like we can do all these different gimmick matches that we normally don't do because we have this KOPW thing. But now we have this whole thing where they're just picking these out of the box, goofy stipulations that aren't really wrestling stipulations. Like, why are we having eating contests in the middle of a 2 out of 3 falls match? And I guess some people, they think they find it entertaining. They think it's building their personalities. But for me, what built personality in New Japan was the triumph of defeat, or the sorrow in losing.
Yeah, yeah. Call me old fashioned, but I like wrestling in my pro wrestling, and I think that this is embarrassing. I really do, and I agree with pretty much everything that you said there. I think that it is a shame because there was a period of time where guys like Hinare and Taichi and Shingo Takagi in the last couple of years worked really hard to have different kinds of out of the box sort of matches and stipulations that elevated this title and made it something that was somewhat sought after. And since the beginning of this year, it's fallen far from that, and it's been something that I just don't want to watch, and it's a little disappointing because even though, yeah, it's a mid-card thing, and yeah, there is some zaniness and goofiness to it, but it should be hypothetically a stepping stone to build guys up to the next level, and something that can draw well on your B shows when you are in these rural areas. And maybe it is. Maybe these last 2 matches did do somewhat okay, but I think we're splitting hairs there because in the long term, you've got a greater, wider audience that are watching it online and seeing this, and it's kind of, to me, a black eye on the company. Um, it sucks, and I am surprised, and that's another thing. I am surprised. You go to cage match, and this is sitting at a 7 something, and far be it from me to say that the work, and I guess we should just go through the results, tearing the match apart. The work in the match wasn't the worst thing in the world. There was some good work, especially in the quote unquote third fall, but I don't know, man. Like, I don't think that Taiji Shimori is any better off after having held this recently. I don't think that um Taichi is better off after having won it at the end of the year. I don't think that this has done anything for Great-O-Khan coming out of these 2 matches and these defenses. And hopefully we're turning a corner with Uemura holding it, but I'm not even holding out hope for that because it's not really. I don't know. I think back to like WWE and those Taboo Tuesdays, and when they were
Mhm.
like letting people vote, and it became like something that was detrimental because they weren't gimmicking it, and I don't think they're gimmicking these votes, and they're not presenting the best options when it comes to actual matches that you'd want to see as a fan, and people are with the bullshit, and so we have to digest the bullshit, and I'm tired of tippy toeing around the fact that this is just shit. This is shit. Like it is. And I think it sucks that if a future star like Uemura, a guy that we think has IWGP potential, is in the muck, having this be his first title reign. Like this feels like um the kind of shit they do in WWE where they like put a title on somebody, but they give them like terrible gimmicks as a rib, to see if they can
Yeah.
handle it.
Yeah, I know people are like, you should be happy, Uemura won. And I'm just like, no, I think I would have just preferred Okan to win because the way this title was treated, even when it was Shingo Hanare Taichi, like the title was still not seen as this top title. It wasn't really, it's not main eventing big shows. We're here on a Road to show. It's not even the main event of this show. The title's just not treated seriously. It's even when serious guys have it, it's definitely seen as a lower kind of tier title. And for a guy like Uemura, who's supposed to be one of these, musketeers, pillars, whatever you want to call them, the future of his company, to be, like you mentioned, stuck in the muck with this kind of gimmicky title, especially if we see the trend going forward, he's going to be proposing wacky stipulations, then he's going to be seen as a comedy character.
Mhm.
And we've seen in New Japan when guys get kind of saddled in a lane, it's very hard for them to get out of that. And that's what's happening to somebody like Dave Finley, who was a mid-card opening job guy for so long. And when that goofy tag team with Juice Robinson was always kind of seen as this kind of goofy mid-card baby face, and that they flip the switch all of a sudden, and now we're supposed to take him seriously as this dastardly heel. And we see that a lot of times where these guys that get stuck in that lane and then, oh, we're gonna hit the switch and it's all different now. And that's what's gonna happen with Uemura. If they go down the road and have him do all these comedy stuff, he's gonna be seen as a comedy wrestler. And then they're gonna be like, oh, well, now we're ready for him to challenge for the title. Like, who's gonna take him seriously when he's doing, eating lemming, throwing tires around and doing all this KOPW stuff?
Yeah, and another thing too, and this is just kind of keeping with the kayfabe. He hasn't even won the title. Technically, this is not an official title reign of any sort. He is a provisional KOPW champion. That means that it's temporary unless he holds it to the entirety of the year, and then it resets at the end. The only person that's the real champion is the guy that wins it at the end. So technically, he's not even really a singles champion right now.
Right. It's kind of like the championship scramble thing, where like Brian Kendrick was a WWE champion for that, few minutes. Like
It's
you go to
exactly like that. In the kayfabe, that's exactly what it is.
yeah,
Brian
you go to the
Kendrick was a provisional WWE champion.
you go to the record books, you don't see his name there. And that's what's gonna happen with Uemura. You go to the KOPW, if he doesn't hold it by the end of the year, like nobody's gonna remember that he was the provisional champion at the end of April.
Would he want to? I don't
Mid
know, man. I don't
Yeah.
know.
But yeah, as far as the actual match, so like I mentioned, the first fall they had cones in the ring, and then they had tires, and they each had to put 4 tires on their cone. So there was a lot of kind of back and forth there until Uemura was able to get 4 cones on his tire, which led to the second fall, which ended up being a lemon eating contest. Well, I guess they only had to eat 1 lemon.
But the
Uh,
entire lemon, including the rinds, which nobody does that.
yeah. And so, Great-O-Khan's supposed to be like this, I guess part of his gimmick now. He's like this big eater because did the whole thing with the eel or whatever in the last match. So, they're eating it, and Uemura's having a hard time, and Great-O-Khan's like chomping down, and finally, it's a big, huge bite, eats the whole lemon. He wins the second fall. And then that brought to the final fall, which was a table match. And this was probably the best part of the match because a lot of this played around what they were building up, where Uemura is trying to prove that he is as good as a grappler as O-Khan is. And so through the whole match, he's trying to suplex O-Khan through a table, and O-Khan's just out wrestling him, outpowering him. And then towards the end, there's a table in the corner, and O-Khan's about to suplex him through it. And then Uemura was able to shift his hips, hits a deadbolt to O-Khan through the table, and he wins the provisional KOPW match.
17 minutes for the table match, including everything else for the entirety. The whole entire match was close to like 40 minutes with everything combined, which was just like I would have been perfectly fine with just a 20-minute table match.
Yeah, why can't and because the table match fit the story, like they want to prove who's a better suplex, who can suplex who through a table, like that. I think would have been great. Just do a table match.
Yeah, fuck the rural revitalization.
Yeah, so yeah, he's a provisional champion here, and I guess we'll see what happens moving forward.